welcome to Get a Shift On, your podcast all about career change and career transition. A bit different this week, I'm on the road, and it's really quite apt that I'm back at my mother's house, as I was really pleased to welcome Oli Russell-Cowan to my podcast this week. Oli and I went to school together and we had a lot of fun, and as you'll see from the start of the video, we caused a lot of chaos, and that hasn't changed in the 30 years that I've known him. It was a real pleasure to talk to Oli about all of the work that he has done over the years, from leaving school to skating to surfing, living in Oz, working for Liquid Death, and having his own businesses, selling his own business, and now starting his own marketing agency, Unchartered Territory. I hope you enjoy the episode. It was a lot of fun. It's quite raw, but I left in a bit of the fun. Don't forget, if you are stuck in your career, you can change. It is possible. Please do like, subscribe, and share this podcast so you can see that it is possible to change and that there is a positivity coming out of it. Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to...
How you doing?
You got the second person to call me Birchie in a podcast in successive weeks, so that's really cool.
Sorry, you were just about to say something and I just jumped straight in.
Jump straight in, I don't mind, I will let you off. I will introduce Oliver Russell-Cowan to the audience of Get a Shift On. I have known Oli for 30 years this year. Absolutely scary, because it means we are getting super old, and I'd say mature, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I don't think I can.
No, and I don't ever want to be honest. I think I'm probably more of a child now than I ever was when we were at school. As a quick insight, Oli and I went to boarding school together, and at the tender age of 13, shared a dormitory with 7 other lads. And there's a whole podcast episode, I'm sure, on some of the shenanigans that we got up to all the way back then. Oli, welcome.
Thanks for having me on. I can't believe it's been 30 years when we started there. It's wild thinking back, like all that time and everything. Yeah, just everything that we kind of got up to there, and how like strangely, well, not strangely, but those like years were pretty formative, especially kind of everything that I went on, and like from work or from personal life. Yeah, it just sort of certainly shaped the direction. And I think like us sort of growing up in that environment was pretty strange. It was fun as well. And I think, it's like speaking to people that we went to school with as well. Like recently, I still catch up with a few people, and it's interesting to kind of see what everyone's doing now, 30 years later.
It's mad, isn't it? 30 years just seems like a really long time. And I can't believe it's really been that long. But I think it's really nice that we still keep in touch. And as you said, there's still people that I speak to, and it's great. And I think the friendship is everlasting. And we can pick up, I know, where we left off whenever we actually last saw each other in person. Yeah, it's much. So tell us then, what are you up to now? What happened post dorm room? And where are you now?
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a wild ride in terms of career and everything. I mean, when we were at school, I was absolutely obsessed with skateboarding, which then sort of turned into surfing. So I was just getting too injured skating, and kind of when we left school, I ended up going to Swansea University. It was one of the closest universities in the UK to the beach, and the whole sole purpose of that, I think our old housemaster still quotes me, and he basically just said that, it's the closest university to the beach, and then if you want to go surfing, that's the place to do it. So that was the reason. And I think I was like, had that on my UCAS form or something, and he's just like, you can't put that on there. I was like, well, I'm just going to be honest,
The truth.
And I meant like saying that in the interview, and that in like weirdly that sort of like directed every major decision that I've made in terms of what I've done, where I've gone. When I graduated, I got in, was working in London in advertising for some action sports magazines, and that's kind of like, I guess, how that whole journey and world opened up. And then after that, I did that for a couple of years and had a bit of a panic attack because I didn't really want to be in London anymore. Like, I'm from there, and I was like, I spent the whole time trying to escape, go down to Newquay and Croydon, and like Cornwall and Devon every weekend, like whenever I could with friends from London. And we just thought like, okay, like this is ridiculous. I'm commuting 4 hours, like, you know, that's on a good run, you know, like
Yeah.
could be up to like 6, 7 like bank holidays and stuff. And I think like kind of, yeah, like doing that, my girlfriend, now wife at the time, we were like, you know, why don't we think about somewhere like moving somewhere a bit closer to the sea? So we hatched a plan of emigrating to Australia, and that was like just before we turned 30. So I think we were like 28 when we were thinking about doing that. And yeah, that was uh then like we were thinking, oh, if we do this, we're gonna need a bit more money. Although the action sports and like doing like working for the publication was great fun, I just thought I just needed to kind of just fill the bank a little bit and just try and get some savings. Just, and from that, I went into working in IT sales, like for a market research company, and did that until we left. And then when we got over to Australia, I was like then again in sales, working for an events company. Before I thought, okay, like maybe now was the time that I could start my own thing, and I came up with an idea for an events platform. It's like an events and festivals website, which was a place to find, like almost like a search engine for finding fun events. And it could be like Oktoberfest or Tomatina. And it was super fun doing that. It was called Rad Season. Like ended up getting acquired at the end of last year. And during kind of COVID, as everyone knows, events kind of shut down globally. So I had a bit of a panic and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I started doing a podcast, and somehow it turned into it was like an action sports podcast. Basically, I was like, oh, it just gives me an excuse to kind of like get on phone calls and on Zoom with people that I've admired, like whether that's athletes or kind of people within the industry. And yeah, that turned into a TV show. It was on a cable TV channel called Fuel TV. And that then led to Liquid Death, where I had the founder of Liquid Death on. They're a beverage, canned water, soft drinks and iced tea brand out of the US. So that kind of led to me then working for them in lifestyle marketing, which I sort of ran internationally, like ran their lifestyle marketing division internationally for about 18 months. And yeah, that sort of then brings me up to what I'm currently doing. Very long-winded story.
It's not the longest I've had. That's amazing. That's super cool. Rad Season. Yeah, I obviously kept up with some of what you were doing over the years. Who are the best guests that you had on Rad Season, and what made them
Had some
so good?
really fun ones. I had like Wim Hof, the Iceman. He
Awesome.
was, yeah, he was out there, definitely. He was about an hour late, and it was in a studio in Lisbon, and we were like recording it. It was like right smack bang in the middle of COVID, and yeah, I think he was like swimming in a lake or something, and he kept on saying, "I can't hear you." I was like, "You got to stop swimming in cold water. Your ears are blocking up." Yeah, so he was really fun, and then I've had some just some like sort of surfing heroes of mine, kind of growing up as a kid, and you know, then when you can kind of ask them questions about about sort of how the sport began, like, you know, the modern version of it anyway, and you know, when the first brands were built, and like the industry as a whole, and competitive surfing. That was really interesting. I was just geeking out, basically.
I'm not surprised that's the route you went down, because I'm pretty sure at school I had lots of semi-naked women on my walls, and you had skaters and surfers, and I'm pretty sure we used to sit and watch like hours of skating and hours of surfing. I thought it was very cool. I could never do any of it, and still can't, clearly, but it was always fun to kind of watch. And now my son is kind of picking up some of that, which is also quite funny.
Oh, really?
As well. And a big fan of Green Day, it was you and John, I think, that introduced me to Green Day. And now
they had a massive comeback. So they were headlining Download Festival this summer, which was crazy to see. You know, like the sort of one of those bands that did break through and is still like kind of relevant today. Yeah. So that's cool that he's listening to them.
I know, it's brilliant. Absolutely, I love it. It's great because it just lets me relive my youth a little bit. What was it that made you? What was the feeling that you had when you wanted to start your own thing? Why did you start it?
I think it was almost like that rebellious sort of nature from those like skateboarding punk rock days of like, I can do my own thing. I was kind of sick of not just like working for other people. Like like it's great if you have like a good environment and there's good culture and you've got a good boss and all that sort of stuff. And I think I definitely felt that with Liquid Death, like 100%, and sort of was given autonomy, and they were an amazing company to work for. And yeah, like previous ones I've had in the past, it's sort of like, you are just working for a paycheck. I mean, in Australia, I was like, I chose the job, it was in Manly where I was living, and I got to surf at lunch break. It's like, it just sounds ridiculous. It's like sort of like, like a skate rap from London, surf before work, at lunch, and afterwards. It's just like, come on, like, so it definitely wasn't a career move. But then that was sort of like, I thought, okay, like, let's just take a punt on it. And what's the worst that can happen? You try it and it doesn't work, but you learn something. And I think like for years, it was almost the same with the podcast. Like for years, I put off doing any public speaking or like anything. Like, remember, like as a kid, like when we were at school, I was like, so like, wouldn't want to read in front of anyone at class, had a really bad stutter. And it's, the stutter kind of comes back if I get nervous, but it's like, the more you kind of do these things, the more like just put yourself out there, the easier it all gets. And then you just realize it's not as scary as you thought it was.
It's like listening to yourself on video. I'm still not a big fan of doing this. I listen back and think, wow. And I remember you as that young kid, stuttering, really shy. I was the same, but for very different reasons. I had a really squeaky voice. It took a long time for my voice to break. I never wanted to speak in front of everyone because everyone used to take the piss out of me. But I do remember that. And I remember thinking years ago when I saw what you were doing, that it's awesome that you are out there doing the podcast. And again, that you mentioned being a rebel doesn't particularly surprise me. Is that what attracted you to Liquid Death? Because they were clearly very rebellious in their marketing strategy. I love what they've done. I think it's amazing.
I think for them, I mean, I kind of knew about them really early on. So like when they like did their first video, I saw that and I thought, okay, like this is pretty interesting. And like even then I was like, if this comes over to Europe, like it's definitely got legs. And that was like when they had like the waterboarding video that went on Facebook and like, Mike, the founder's in it and stuff. And I think it's sort of the whole kind of ethos back then when they first started as a brand was that whole, it almost reminded me of an action sports brand, and it was a drinks company, but all their communities and kind of like the pillars and what they stand for, it was that kind of like rebellious, like we don't really care, we're going to do something funny because we find it funny and our mates do. It wasn't like, oh, it's going to be like metal or punk rock. It was all, the whole thing was just based around humor. And that was like the overarching thing of all the content. And then the guy that brought me on was a guy called Steve Nielsen. And he was like employee number 5 at Liquid Death. And he ran the lifestyle marketing team over in the US. And he had, like 8 people working in his team doing what I was doing in Europe. And I was basically like trying to replicate what he was doing in every country that we're launching into. But his background, he was like the first sports marketing manager at Red Bull. And then he was there for a decade. And then he went over to Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is a beer company, and kind of like took his action sports contacts and network and then sort of did that within beer at Pabst. And then sort of did it again at Liquid Death and sort of disrupted that whole thing. And it was basically like all the scenes that I was interested in, all the music genres that I liked. I think I was the only person there that didn't have any tattoos. My brother, he was covered in tattoos, and he said, if you get one, you're gonna get covered. So I was just like, I've avoided it ever since. I still don't have any, but it was definitely like, it felt that everyone that was working there you could get on with, and you could go out and have a beer with them, or a water in this case, but you could have a good time. And we did some amazing things across, like, we were in about 100 different festivals in the UK, and we had like a partnership with Metallica, and we were doing stuff in skateboarding and surfing and comedy and all kinds of fun stuff. It was great.
Amazing. It sounds like a really exciting time. And did you learn a lot from it? What's the kind of big takeaway for you? Obviously, you've got your marketing agency now, which we'll talk about, but what was the big takeaway from working for Liquid Death, someone who's quite so disruptive?
I think like one of the things was like how quickly they moved. And by that I mean that, you know, if they had an idea, they'd brainstorm it pretty quickly. To give you an example, Pepsi years ago said that they were going to give away a jet fighter, a plane. Like the founders, like, yeah, I think we should try and do this. So told the CMO, and you know, this was like, I think it was about, you know, 2 months before Christmas. He goes, yeah, I want to do this. I want to make this happen as soon as possible. And it's like, yeah, but you know, we've got all these things coming up. It's Christmas soon, and like that. And they ended up like pulling it off in about 3 months. To do something like that, all the creative, all the marketing, everything was done internally. They had this thing called the Death Machine, which was like their own in-house creative agency, where it was, you know, they'd have like legit comedians and script writers in like internally that would then be putting all this content together, which was mad. And yeah, they were just kind of just reacting like something would happen sort of across pop culture, and they'd be able to do something funny around it really quickly. And like a big enterprise company, they can't move that fast, and they're sort of working with like there's just multiple components. It's just way more complicated. So I think that was pretty cool. And then just the people that were involved in it, like on my team, it's sort of like, you know, we had like one of the best skateboarders in the world, one of the best snowboarders. We had a guy called Blasco, who was the bass guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne. So all these people had like amazing networks and were able to, like, you know, like unlock opportunities that would cost other companies. Basically, we could credibly integrate the brand for free, where others would have to pay a ton of money to get involved in them.
I think it was probably end of last year, maybe even longer ago, someone sold a piece of artwork nailed to a piece of wood. I don't know if you remember seeing that. And pretty much the same day, Liquid Death did the same with a can. And it's just thought brilliant, absolutely brilliant to kind of hook onto something so quickly. And they basically know, if this piece of artwork sells for this much, then that makes our cans worth X. Just that moving quickly is so key. Do you think that's where a lot of people, both individuals and large companies, go wrong? They just think about stuff, try and plan it out, think, plan, meeting, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think like there's a lot of, you know, maybe back and forth. There's a lot of meetings. I think a lot of it is kind of just going on your gut, but like kind of doing it calculated. And in the term of in Liquid Death's example, I mean, everyone kind of wanted to like emulate or do what they were doing, but then, you know, whether they would have like, they don't have to copy them, but there was just sort of just something that yeah, we want to do, or like be more like Liquid Death. But then, like, would they have the guts to do something like that? Would it get clearance, all like within their company, all those kind of things? And I think everyone sort of says they want to do these disruptive things, but deep down, when it comes to it, and it comes to the pointy end, do they really? And there's only, you know, there's not that many companies that sort of say, okay, well, we do that because maybe some people that are working within it or on a project are like, oh, I can't risk this in case it goes wrong. But if you don't try these things, then, you know, you don't really know. So, yeah, you've got to kind of go with your intuition, obviously tactically, and then go for it.
Yeah, I think it's very different, isn't it? Being brave on paper, being brave in the boardroom, I guess, to actually getting out there and saying, oh, yeah, we want to do this, we want to be really edgy. Brewdog have done it very well as well. You know, driving tanks down roads, things like that. I think there's a lot of companies who want to do it, a lot of individuals who think, oh, let's be a bit edgy, a bit brave, and then get stuck, I guess, in the corporate world and think, oh, actually, we can't do that. That's a bit. We've never done it that way.
And it can, yeah, it can kind of, or, you know, or if you have knockbacks or setbacks, and it can kind of zap your confidence in a way, and you think, okay, well, yeah, you know, maybe I shouldn't do this, or I shouldn't try that. But I don't know, even just like sort of looking at things that I'm doing now. I mean, I'm like I've been mountain biking for a couple of years. I'm rubbish, but it's like, you know, it's fun and it's cool to learn new things. But it's sort of, you kind of got to, it's the same in work. If you're like, all right, well, I'll try something new. I might be like, you know, I may suck at kind of whatever it is, you know, like I like working on a new tool or a CRM or something, you know, but then, and you just got to go for it. And then the worst thing that's going to happen is you're just going to get better with times.
And the failing is the fun bit for a lot of people. You kind of have to try those bits to get through, to get back up and understand what you did wrong in the first place, to kind of move on. And you talked about people, obviously some great people that you've worked with throughout the years. Do you think people and the culture of people have to be very similar to have such a successful brand and such a successful company? Like, you obviously did the same with Rad Season. You kind of pull in the same people, like-minded, willing to share, willing to kind of show vulnerability, I guess.
I think so. I think it's sort of like if there's this like-minded attitude across a company or across a division, that's great. But then it's sort of having different skill sets, and that's something I can talk about in a minute with what I'm currently up to with the agency with Uncharted Territory. Yeah, it's having that common goal, but then kind of realizing you don't want to be like if everyone's the same within that, and it has the same skill sets and stuff, it's just not going to work. So if you're depending on if it's different regions, maybe that can work. So my thing was just I was like hired in to Liquid Death as like a European sticks. It's like, okay, this guy, like with like network and Rolodex, and that was it. It was kind of like do that, unlock it, and kind of do what they did in the US and just getting cans in hands and getting it to the right people and places of influence. But then the people that I was working with in the UK, they were like epic and amazing sort of in their own regions, whether that was sort of like in trade marketing or in sales or operations. And yeah, we had some guns that were working with us in the UK, which was really fun.
I want to come back to Uncharted in a minute. But I presume throughout all of your career, you've had some pretty bad down days when things haven't quite gone to plan. COVID clearly is a big one, although that also didn't stop you or Wim Hof in his cold pool. But how do you kind of cope when you have those really, really bad days and things haven't quite gone right? It's all just gone bad.
I think, yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, you're always going to have bad days. It can't, even when things are going well, I almost get a little bit worried. It's kind of everything. I'm on a good run here. What's around the corner?
Just waiting for the next thing.
Whether that's sort of getting injured or something happening. For me, I've been I think addicted to exercise since I can remember. So forever. I would have to get out and just clear my head and go for a jog or do something. And I think that's kind of in those real sort of dark days or those moments when you're not feeling great, just to get outside. It could just be a walk, just to clear your head. It doesn't necessarily have to be a run or a cycle, whatever, just get out and just kind of, just try and calm down and step away from it, whatever that is, and then you can kind of go back to it afterwards.
Do you still skate?
And hopefully you're more clear-headed when you do go back to it.
Yeah. Do you still skate?
I do with Theo. So yeah, I've got an 8-year-old. He's really got into it, and I go with him. And yeah, I kind of just go around. I live over in Portugal, so we go around the skate parks here locally and stuff. And he loves it. Yeah, I think now I'm probably doing more running, still surfing. Yeah, but I think that's kind of as a release, that's my main thing. So I can just go for half an hour. I remember we used to play squash and stuff. That seems like it's extinct now. There's 2 courts in Lisbon. That's it. But yeah, I mean, stuff like that was just amazing. Kind of having that. I don't think we realized it at the time, and we definitely didn't talk about it. And we didn't talk about all those sort of mental states or how you feeling. It just wasn't it was that era and that time where you wouldn't really open up.
I don't think anybody really gave a shit, to be honest.
No, but I think now, I think it would be different. I think there's sort of it's not as sort of shamed or anything like that. So I think at the time it's just sort of just blocking stuff away and then just using exercise or sports or skating as the escape, basically.
And I think you're right. I think we took it for granted because everything was on the doorstep at school. Squash, it's funny you mentioned squash. I've just started playing again. I'm just teaching my kids. And I talked about you. I'm like, oh yeah, Ollie taught me to play. I've always been bad. I still am. Still fat. Still can't run. But it's great because I can
super
beat
fun.
kids.
It's for now. Good.
For now. And yeah, it is, and it's fun. It's just good to get out, clear head, and obviously running your own business is hard to sometimes switch off, and it helps. But I do remember playing squash at school, which was sometimes squash, but also the courts on either side. Do you remember there's that gallery up top? And it's who can we hit up the top? We had, And I was thinking when you mentioned Theo, I thought, okay, so he's 8, so give it another kind of few years. I remember an instant down in the town in Leatherhead where we went to school, pushing each other around in a trolley down the Sainsbury's car park.
Yeah.
And I think,
With John
what would I
and
say?
Nick, right?
What would I say? Yeah. And I thought, what would I say to my kids if they come home and went, oh, Dad, I'll push myself down a car park with a trolley. I don't
It's
know.
fucking wild. I mean, and there's some other stuff which we probably can't talk about on here. But yeah, I mean, there's just like, it's just crazy in terms of. I think it was having that crew and having friends. We're all in that same boat. So, and then you just kind of think of all these like stupid like teenage things to do, right? And yeah,
And I think
it was
people,
funny.
it's hard because unless you've been through it, I think it's really hard to explain to people that you basically live with someone 24/7. Whether we shared a room, like we did for those years, or whether you're kind of in separate rooms, but you're still in the same house, you go to breakfast together, you go to dinner together. There were times when we were great mates, and then times when we just hated each other. I remember like Christmas time, long term, everyone just used to get on their nerves. But looking back, it does kind of prepare you for the relationships that you're going to have, work, business, life, just because that is how it is. And when it's so confined at a young age, it is crazy. It's mad to think back to what it was like. Absolutely mad. Tell me what you're doing now. Tell me about Uncharted.
Yeah, so after Liquid Death, a colleague there, a guy called Ben Dando, he was the managing director of International. So him and I, like, we became mates when we were working there. He's been in the drinks industry for about 20 years. So he has been at like brands like, he was at Coke, he was at Red Bull, and various others, and then he was sort of overseeing that whole kind of global expansion of Liquid Death. And yeah, he was kind of getting asked to advise. He had been like his whole career, so he thought he would go out and do something on his own and set up a global brand building agency called Unchartered Territory. And then I kind of came along with him and thought like that's what I was saying with the different skill sets and things. So I guess we complement each other pretty well, where he would, kind of has that knowledge and background within industry. So whether that's like operations, supply chain, sales, as well as marketing and branding. And then on my end, I've sort of come from events, partnerships, activations, and like lifestyle marketing. So it's we can work on the same projects, but kind of like handle different areas. And then we have recently just brought on someone who's come on as the CEO. So we're both the co-founders, and girl called Lucy, and she's then overseeing everything, all the accounts, and we're working with a number of different clients. At the moment, we've been going for about 3 months. So we've got a few drinks brands that we're working with, and some wellness brands as well. And it's been super fun, and it's great to now then be doing our own thing again. For me, like for after kind of like having Rad season and then not having it, and you're like, oh, kind of, you feel like you're giving away one of your kids when you sort of stop your business. You like work so long, you're like, all right, there you go. So it's great to kind of like to be back doing something again, which you can then have like full control over. It's really fun.
Explain to me lifestyle marketing.
So I guess I'd define it as getting a product or a service in the right hands and to the right people of influence, places and events. By that I mean, in the case of Liquid Death, it was the remit was get cans and hands into the right communities, so everyone knows about the brand. It builds brand awareness. So yeah, for my sins, I guess I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn for previous roles, whether that was sales, and just kind of built up a network on there. And then always tried to keep in contact with, especially if there was like people that I was working with or like past clients or things like that, because you never really know. I still to this day, like just in general, like never burn any bridges. You just don't know what's going to happen. and you shouldn't be doing that anyway. So it's kind of like, it's just good to kind of keep those contacts, keep that network up. And I guess from that, sort of like having those contacts was sort of then, how I got into lifestyle marketing. And it's super fun. It's kind of like, you get to work across these different events. On my end, I didn't really have any budget, or like in previous roles, to then, sponsor things. So we're like, okay, well, how can we gift, or how can we like product seed to the people that we know within our communities that we're involved with anyway? And I'd always be pretty honest and go, okay, like if it was, say, like gaming, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not really a gamer myself, but like we know some, so we can kind of, they then them in that world. Or if it was like different like music genres, or sporting events. If we were, like, a perfect example is I grew up in Wimbledon, and we were thinking like, well, we know some of the people there, where we can get it into the tennis players' houses when they're playing, when Wimbledon tennis is on. And it was just like that kind of example. So I did that with Liquid Death. Yeah, growing up as a kid, I remember like, my mum used to rent out her house to people. We had a whole these bunch of different players staying, and we just get kicked out of our house. And I just go to the pub and just pretend I like forgot my keys. I'd be like, oh, there's like 20 rackets in my bedroom. Hide one of those. So just stuff like that. That you think like, trying to engage with people in a genuine way, in sort of areas that that you're involved with, or people that are.
Yeah, really hard these days to try and break through, I think. But being genuine seems to be the way forward. There's a lot of just stuff out there, isn't there, in marketing as a whole. And for me, trying to understand how to best get over what I'm doing to people it's a really difficult place to navigate. Thought before we started recording that you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Which platforms do you enjoy the most, and why are they so beneficial to the different viewers?
I think from a business standpoint, LinkedIn is probably by far the most important. I've like made friends through that. And I think it's something that, it just seems like way more untapped than, say, an Instagram, or you could probably do the same sort of thing in Twitter as well. But I think for LinkedIn, especially if your content, if it's half decent, and it's original, and you're putting out videos on there, and you're being consistent on there as well, it sort of feels that, there's not that many, like there are a lot of people doing it, but it not in comparison to like a TikTok or Instagram. So I think that's definitely one that I would focus on. And for us as an agency, I mean, we work with brands who are then our customers. So for us, sort of LinkedIn is definitely key to that, as well as having like presences on the other channels. But I would say spend time on there, even if it's kind of, there's people that you want to connect with, not just dropping them a DM and going, hey, like, and just offering them something straight away. It's like, it's got to be built up, and it takes a bit of time, and that's sort of engaging with their content, or with the company that they're working on, and sort of bit by bit doing it that way.
What's a big marketing no-no other than dropping DMs to people straight away?
Yeah, selling
like the number
selling
one
online courses straight away after like they accept your invite and then just blowing up their DMs. Definitely not.
I love getting those DMs. It's great. Everyone loves to be sold to instantly.
Yeah. Just like bot messages. Like, I think, doing something that, if it's like completely out of your realm or way of thinking, I think that's kind of, if you're trying to fake something, you just get caught out straight away. So there's no point in kind of going like, and like, it's pretty hard to keep up with something like that. So I think if you're working on, say, if it's your own business or a brand, if you don't really like it and you're doing it for another reason, eventually, like, it's just going to get you down. And I think everything I've kind of done has revolved around, that I could kind of get up in the morning and go like, okay, I don't mind doing this. Like the sales I found really fun. Like I'm not, like the whole kind of like the new business stuff and the hunting. I just found it like, it's just a rush. It's kind of like, it's good fun, I think. Like for me personally. And then it's the same thing now with like speaking, and like, you get on stage and it's just like an adrenaline rush. It's like surfing. And I wish I kind of discovered, like in hindsight, oh yeah, it would have been great doing that like years and years ago. But you just never know until you try these things. And it was sort of like, okay, I was scared of it before, and then now it's just like, yeah, I want to do it, and I kind of seek it out because I know I'm gonna get a kick out of it. So I
But if
think
you've done it
that's
years ago, you probably wouldn't be where you are now if you started out on that same track. I think you
I
kind
don't
of
know.
had
I
to go
mean,
through it,
remember
right?
they like made us do the debating at school, and it was just like now looking back, the idea, I
Yeah,
think I would have loved it. And it would have been
yeah.
like, yeah, but at the time I was just like, oh no, I'm not going to do that. I'm like too cool for this. Or what? Just like, what am I thinking? Like, I think like that's something I like look back and go, oh, it would have been good to actually, try and do that. And I sort of see that like with my kid now that, they're like making him do like young entrepreneurs competitions. I was like, oh, do you like it? It's like, yeah, it's all right. And I was like, do it. If you like it and you think it's fun, then, why not give it a crack? What's the worst that can happen?
It's funny you mentioned that. Yesterday, I was acting as a dragon in a local dragon's den at the local grammar school.
Amazing.
We saw kind of five,
Not a
six
proper
year
dragon.
tens.
It's like some kind of carnival thing.
I was dressed up, tail, breathing fire. I was just mentioning the what a catch. That was only the downside. But these kids, year 10, like amazing, coming up with these ideas, presenting, teaching, asking for stuff, really clear ideas, how to use AI. Yeah, amazing. I don't think, I know we did stuff like debating, very different really, but I don't think we necessarily had the same sort of things and opportunities to think outside of the educational box. Debating because it's good for public speaking, it's good for this. When you go to university, when you go to Oxford and Cambridge, that's what it's going to help you with. But I just love the fact it's not the first one I've done with these guys either. And it's just exciting to see the inventions actually that they're coming up with. And there were a couple I'm like, I wish I had some. Number one, I wish they were slightly older so they were not in school and we could actually pursue this. And I had some cash behind me to offer some of the ideas. It was, yeah, really, really good. AI wise, how does that fit into your current world? And do you use it?
I love it. I think it's sort of something like I'm dyslexic. I've got a lot of ideas, but sometimes kind of getting them out on paper isn't the easiest, or haven't found it the easiest. It's like sort of, talking and doing that kind of medium. Like I find it really fun. I love it. But then kind of like writing, maybe not so much. So I think that has definitely helped just for ideation and things. Not as a replacement, but just as a tool. I would use AI every day. Then it's like not just that. It's like it goes beyond OpenAI and like just all these other things that are like incredible. And it's just tapping into that and realizing that it's just an amazing tool to just help you in your day to day with whatever it may be. And if you sort of like need structure on like a complicated email for a pitch that you need to do, and then um, yeah, as long as it's kind of reworded and it sounds like you and you're doing it in your way, especially like, when that kind of came out, whenever it was like a year or so ago back when it's not as advanced as it is now. But yeah, I think it's really helped. Yeah, if I like lean into it, I'm definitely pro instead of against. It's also quite scary to think where it could potentially go, but let's see what happens there.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to lean into it. I think any business that's starting up now has to incorporate it somehow into their platforms, into their offering, because it's so influential and it is only going to get more so. I used it last week. I used an AI agent to create a workbook that I was doing. I give to my clients, and the power is, yeah, it's just unbelievable. Do you think it has a place for creating marketing content and plans at a very kind of basic level to help small businesses start out and grow?
I think so. I mean, I think if you're starting anything and you've got an idea, and if you give it the right input, and you can always tweak that, and you can go over it. I like 100%. It can. It's not just like, oh, this is going to replace because I've got to write this. I'll just get it to like spit something out and write something alternative that sounds a bit more polished. And like think it's sort of, if you're looking at going and starting out and knowing nothing about marketing, it can help, as long as it's sort of like with all this stuff, take it with a pinch of salt, and it is just, it's scraping the internet. So it's just gathering information, but giving it in these bite-sized chunks. Same sort of thing as like, if anything happens to you, you shouldn't Google, what the medical, you just think you're dying every time you look at something. I think it's like that, basically. You just take it with a little bit and then just adjust it to what you need it for. And we were kind of speaking earlier in terms of like imagery and things like that of sort of, I mean, there are certain things that you could copy, whether that's, that's already pre-existing. But again, it's sort of like with ideas, they're just going to come up with regurgitated things that have already been done. They won't necessarily be unique. So yeah, it's good to use it, but also kind of, use your brain as well and use your imagination.
Yeah, I think that's really important, isn't it? To temper its use. Use it for, like you say, dyslexic, really helpful to get that structure, some of the kind of words out. But yeah, when you start using it for everything and it writes, I love watching people when they post stuff and it is clearly written on AI.
Yeah.
And I've done it. Don't get me wrong.
There's so many tells, right? And the British English versus the American, and I mean, there's a lot. Yeah,
but it's there and it's not going anywhere. So I guess people have to use it.
I think so. I think just embrace it, and then there's like loads of cool things that you can do with it.
Yeah. So what's next? Where's Uncharted going? What's the direction?
So Uncharted Territory, we've got quite a few things coming up. We just did a tattoo flash activation last weekend with a client, which was amazing. They ended up having like 100 people getting the brand and their slogans tattooed on them, which is pretty wild. Good brand, like good advocacy of the product right there. We've got a few other clients who've got some really cool projects coming up that we're going to be working across. And then internally, we've got a podcast for Uncharted coming out as well. So that's kind of looking at speaking to some of the founders that we're working with. Some of them are celebrity founders. I can't really say who it is just yet, but that's going to be exciting, and kind of like almost like dissecting why, say, people that have influence and are celebrities, why are they building brands? Like, how involved are they really? And then just kind of going into it a little bit more, and what's the reason behind they want to like create a company.
That will be pretty awesome. I look forward to seeing who these people are. I wish you all the best with everything that you're doing. Can you just give me and my listeners just one piece of advice about starting and growing a small business that you've learned through your journey?
I'd say like follow what you're passionate about, but also try and do a bit of research if there is a real need and if there's a gap in the market for it. That's something that I definitely like looking back. That's what I would strongly advise, because you can kind of go down that passion route, but then be blinkered and be blinded to the other things and go, well, is this actually, is this going to be a business? Can this be a business? And then test it quickly in the market by people outside of your network. So not family and friends who are just going to say, hey, it's great, it's going to work. It could be strangers, but like definitely do some market research, and then you'll know pretty quickly if you're onto something. And then if you can sell it, that's also pretty good. And then sort of not hiding behind vanity metrics, whether it's had X amount of views or reach and stuff. It's just like, is it actually going to be a viable product, service? And can this be a business?
Amazing. Noted. It's been amazing.
Thanks, man.
Look, we could talk forever, I'm sure, about all sorts of things and share some of those stories, but probably best not.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been super
pleasure
fun.
As always. Take care. Good to see you.
Cheers, Dave.